What's up, everybody? I hope you're doing well. Welcome to the extended cut, minimally edited, definitely, most likely rambly podcast version of this week's video. If you're listening to the podcast version, you're just gonna get the same stuff that's in my official video, plus a whole bunch of stuff that I ended up cutting out because I can get rambly. So if you're into that, that's what this is. So true to form, I'm going to kick off this video with a little bit of a ramble because I had planned out a few potential options for what I could record this week. And then again, this morning, I woke up and I just did not want to do those videos. I'll still do them, but I just have this thing happen where I can't produce things if I don't feel like it. Is that, maybe everyone just feels that way? I don't know. I'm not great at pushing through. Or if I've tried it a few times before where I just stick by a video and make it happen, even if I felt that way waking up in the morning when I'm supposed to film, I just, like, the whole day just feels icky. So I'm sure I'll come back to those video topics. I have one about, navigating client resistance that I want to make. And I forget, there was something else about how to network well with other therapists. I'm sure those will happen sometime, but not today. When I woke up this morning, I just felt like I wanted to take a look back at 2023 and kind of review it. Like, what did I have planned for that year and how did it end up playing out? And then look ahead a little bit into 2024 and share what some of my plans are. And I get that this podcast is coming out in the latter half of January, so I'm a little bit late to the party. But the turn of the new year overlaps with the holidays, and I'm usually just vegging out then, or, let's be honest, chasing children around because, there's less childcare available during the holidays and just trying to survive. So now that I have childcare again, I can finally think about 2024 and what I want to do this year. So if you haven't started making plans for 2024, then you're in good company. Let's go along for the ride. Maybe this will be a little bit of inspiration for you, or, I just hope you enjoy the video wherever you're at with your plans in life. So I'll share a little bit of context as I stepped into 2023 in my personal life, because I really feel like that has influenced my businesses so much over the years. So as we kicked off 2023, my household had lived in 5 places during the 4 years prior to that. I know, and I hate moving. So it takes me a good long while to regroup after a move to feel like I'm myself again, like at least 6 months, if not a year. So I was kind of in a perpetual state of I feel like I'm in a moving transition for those 4 years. Another important and very influential aspect of the 4 years of my life leading up to 2023 was I got pregnant twice, and I had those babies and raised them. And I also made a choice at that time to have part-time childcare while I stayed at home the rest of the time. Not to mention that there was a pandemic in the midst of that where I didn't have childcare. So that was taking up a lot of my brain energy, if you will, and sleep, and hormones made me foggy, and et cetera, et cetera. But in summer 2022, my household made a move into what we sure hope will be our forever home or something close to it. So entering 2023, I was feeling literally settled into the home and psychologically settling into a space rather than being in a kind of perpetual state of we're moving. And at that point, my daughters were 1.5 and 3.5. So it felt like I was maybe just starting to exit that initial fog of being a parent. So as I entered 2023, I felt like the dust was finally settling on some of these personal matters, that I wasn't going to be moving anymore. I wasn't planning on having any more babies, and I could focus more on me, which included my professional life. I'll be honest, a lot of my professional life in the years leading up to 2023 was focused on doing the bare minimum while maintaining, ethical, legal standards and all of that. But I wasn't trying to make my therapy practice be super busy. I would post videos to private practice skills, but I would look for ways to make them the easiest to make as possible, to be honest. And that was because I just felt like I didn't have the time or the psychological space to up the ante and kind of really meet the bar that I typically have for myself in my professional life. So as I stepped into 2023, I felt really hopeful that I would have more time and psychological margin to really lean in and go above and beyond professionally rather than doing like the bare minimum. But as you'll see in this video, there were a lot of things in 2023 that did not go the way I expected them to, even though 2023 was still a really good year. So let's talk about what some of my actual plans were as I stepped into 2023. One of the things that I wanted to do was make some intentional pivots with private practice skills, particularly around what kind of content that I created for my YouTube channel. Leading up to 2023, my content for private practice skills was almost exclusively related to running a private practice, a lot of it on the business side of things, a little bit dabbling in the clinical, but in a way that feels kind of specific to private practice mostly. And it was the beginning of 2023 that I made a conscious decision that I was going to start branching out into additional topics. Keeping the private practice stuff in there as well, but maybe focusing a bit more on clinical items as well. And I also had a broad interest in creating content around social justice related items within our field. I know that's a broad topic, but there's a lot of things that could fit in there, and incorporating all of that into my YouTube channel. Another plan that I explicitly made for myself going into 2023 was to do more interviews for my videos for this channel. I thought it would be a nice way to branch out, to bring in experts, or maybe it's not an expert per se, but somebody who can bring in a different perspective than, just me talking all the time. Perhaps some of that motivation carries some insecurity with it of like, what else do I have to offer? But also, I think there is a genuine value in bringing in as many different voices as possible. So I thought, okay, about once a month, I'm going to have an interview video on this channel. Another explicit plan that I made for 2023 was to launch a membership group for folks interested in private practice. And the idea of that group was that it would be a highly affordable membership model where folks could enter or exit at any time. And by highly affordable, I mean something on the scale of like $5 a month, so that, anybody who wanted to access this could do it, and they could also leave at any time. There was no like minimum amount of months that you'd have to be a member. And as far as my goals for my therapy practice in 2023, I wanted to keep it pretty low key, kind of status quo. Things were working. I work very part-time in private practice, just 1 day a week, and I wanted to keep it that way and not kind of expand or do anything too wild with it. And generally, those were my plans going into 2023 professionally. So now that you've heard those, let's talk about some of my wins and flops of 2023. I'd say a big win above all the other wins, at least for me, and I don't know what this says about my values, was that my general work ethic was so strong in 2023. As we're going to get into as we start talking about the flops of 2023, there were a lot of things that interrupted my schedule in 2023, and somehow I just kept going. I kept wanting to work, and sometimes that meant staying up really late at night to get stuff done. But my general work ethic never went away. I never felt like deflated or burnt out or like I didn't want to keep going as far as getting my work done. So I think that was a big win. We're going to touch a little bit more on my drive and work ethic, I think a little more in this episode, but that is something that's been very constant in my life, that I just am intrinsically motivated to work. Again, whatever that says about my function, sense of value, I don't know, but that's just been true of me. And if we take a look at my income, my numbers for 2023 were also definitely a win. I wasn't putting in more work, if at all, compared to 2022, but my income held steady and kind of increased just a little bit in a way that feels like it kept up with inflation at least. Another win of 2023 is that it was the first year since having babies that I genuinely wanted to see more therapy clients. In years past, when my practice would slow down, sometimes I would let it stay slow while we were in the middle of a move, while I was gearing up from maternity leave, or any number of life transitions that made things feel hard for me. I just let my practice be slow and hoarded those open spots. And 2023 was the first time that I felt really excited anytime there was an opening in my schedule to go ahead and fill it with a new client right away. So for 2023, I actually did my highest numbers in private practice since I went to being part-time in private practice, because now I split my time between private practice and private practice skills. Another win of 2023 is I've definitely upped my game on this channel. Whether you've noticed it or not, I'm aware of it, that my video production skills and my editing skills have improved. And I'd say even the amount of time and effort that I put into scripting a video has also improved. Not a video like this one because it's pretty chill, but most of my videos I spend a lot more time putting together. Before 2023, I saw my videos as content to kind of feed the algorithm and grow my business, while hopefully also helping people. And now in 2023, I've really seen making videos as a craft, something that I'd like to grow and improve upon. So rather than it being about like, how do I bang out as many videos as I can, it's more about like, how do I make this one video that I'm working on the best video that I can within my available skill set. And another super random win of 2023 is, I guess I accidentally started a podcast. Hello, podcast listeners. Thanks for being here. There was actually a Q&A video that I made like ages ago where somebody specifically asked me whether I would start a podcast. And I don't remember what I said exactly, but I definitely remember that my answer was no. It was like, I'm doing YouTube all the way. But somewhere along the way in 2023, I started to notice that as I was editing my videos for my usual weekly videos, there'd be a point in the edit where there'd be all this stuff in there that I could keep in the video, but then it would be like 20 or 30 minutes, and I'm trying to make my videos shorter and snappier. So I decided to just start exporting the video at that point in the process and then just continue editing that video down to the final product that I'd normally release so that anyone who likes the rambly extended version of Marie can access it in a podcast form. Why not? And I think before I had some sense that maybe no one would really want to listen to that. Again, you know, insecurities are real. It's like, why would people want to listen to Marie ramble? But I like listening to other people ramble in their podcasts. So maybe some people might feel that way. I figured, why not? It's a low bar. I'll just release these things as a podcast. And I'm not saying that like my podcast has like blown up or anything along those lines, but that was a fun win of 2023. I put very minimal effort into it. And we'll come back to that when we talk about my plans for 2024. So let's talk now about some of my flops for 2023. And I don't want to call any of these a fail. It's just flops. They're flops. Now, this one's a personal item, but it influenced every aspect of my life, very much including my professional life. And that's just that I did not anticipate just how challenging this phase of parenting would be, at least for me. And I always remember there's that statistic that I learned in, I think, undergrad about how for partnered couples, when your youngest child is 2, that tends to be the time when you're least satisfied in your marriage. And though I feel like my husband and I are doing a really good job in staying partnered well, oh my goodness, this phase of being a parent is incredibly difficult for me. Personally, this has been the hardest phase of parenting so far for me, except for when I was pregnant. Because for me, being pregnant was so much harder than, being not pregnant with small children. That's where I'm at right now. But if we rewind to the summer of 2023, there was a point where I felt like, this parenting thing is getting easier. My girls are growing up. They're a little more independent. At that point, my youngest was 2 and my oldest was about to turn 4. Potty training is a beautiful thing. And so, it felt like things were getting easier. So I started leaning into bigger projects. And then my oldest daughter dropped her nap time, which for me was, I don't know how to explain how challenging that transition was for me. I can just say, like, if you've been there and found that challenging, perhaps you can relate. I knew that at some point between age 3 and 5, my oldest daughter would drop her nap time. And that was, a solid hour and a half or 2 hours every day where I could do literally whatever I wanted that I no longer had. So I shouldn't say literally whatever I wanted, whatever. Within the context of staying at home while my girls were napping, I could work, I could read a book outside, I could garden. It was my time to do whatever I wanted while staying at home with, the baby monitor next to me. And when my daughter dropped her nap, it suddenly just like hit me that I've genuinely felt like I could not sustain parenting to the extent that I was and stay healthy. Shout out to all the parents out there who are stay-at-home parents, part-time parents, you have more than 2 kids, you have 1 kid, whatever. It's hard. My daughter dropped her nap in August. I remember it clearly what month it was. And it was also around that time that both of my girls would start waking up really early in the morning to play, like 5:30 or earlier in the morning to play. So not only did I not have this kind of break in my schedule in the middle of the day, but I also really wasn't getting enough sleep. So what ended up happening was whatever I had used that hour and a half to 2 hours in the afternoons doing, I pushed it into my evenings, and I ended up working almost every evening starting in August, like almost every evening until 11 or 12. Yes. And that was a choice. I could have scaled back my workload, but then I think I would have felt resentful that I didn't get to do this thing that I loved. So that was like my body's way of trying to create some sort of balance by saying, well, I love doing what I do for work so much that if I drop it and scale it back, I'm going to be feeling resentful potentially towards my girls, which they don't deserve, for taking up time in my schedule that I really wanted to use doing something else. So if I keep this in my evenings, then I can still be happily in mom mode, seemingly. I know this doesn't make sense. This is how I was trying to figure it out. Now, I don't think you have to be a rocket scientist or a therapist to know that that's not a sustainable schedule. And I felt it in my soul in August that it was not working. And I was hoping things would just get better. I don't know what I was hoping for. But by November, I ended up caving and switching from part-time childcare to full-time childcare. And let me tell you, that was the best decision ever. Oh my goodness. This isn't like a judgment statement of how other people should set up childcare or whatever. It's just, I needed that. I personally needed that. And I mean, that change did it. I feel so much better. But yeah, I would put that as a flop in 2023 in the sense that, you know, it is what it is. Nobody failed, but wow, I did not anticipate just how difficult it would be for me to be a parent in this phase of my girls' lives. As much as I love them and as absolutely adorable as they are and how much I love seeing them grow, like, oh man, I needed that break in the afternoons. And when I didn't have it anymore, I did not know how to stay regulated, just being honest. Another flop is that I did not wind up doing very many interviews for this channel. I think I didn't go back to count, but I think it was maybe 3 interviews or 4 if you count my interview with my spouse, which was super fun. I have some theories on why I didn't really follow through on the interviews. I mean, one is the interviews take a lot of work leading up to the interview, which may still be worthwhile. But I also found the editing process to be a lot more work and time than other videos. And not that this needs to be the reason that determines whether I make a video or not, but for whatever reasons, the videos that I've created where I've interviewed folks tend to have fewer views than my other videos. Now, I'm not one to shy away from making a video that's likely to have fewer views. This one that you're watching right now will probably have fewer views than my other videos on this channel. But when I have a guest on my channel, I want to kind of like roll out the red carpet for them and give them the royal treatment. And if the videos are not getting as many views as my other videos, I kind of feel bad that I didn't, you know, that video didn't perform as well, and that therefore, like, maybe I wasn't being hospitable or something. I mean, obviously I can't control how many views a video gets aside from, you know, just trying to make a good video, but I feel some level of responsibility that for my guests, and that, like, I want to give them the best, and then it feels like I didn't give them the best. So that's probably honestly the main reason why I didn't wind up doing as many interviews. And if you're a close follower of my work, another flop of 2023 is that membership that I talked about did not happen. Now, I definitely dove in head first into making this membership. I'm still I don't know, a quarter of the way maybe through a training that I'm going through to get all the tech lined up to make this kind of membership happen, because in order to do all the things that I want to do with it, it's incredibly technologically complicated. But as I said earlier, August happened, my daughter dropped her nap, and I just had to figure it out professionally, and I just completely did not follow through on that membership. So currently it is tabled, and someday I would love to come back to it, but it hasn't happened. Another flop of 2023 is that some of the things that I was actually able to stay on top of before 2023, even as a mom, even during the pandemic and all of that, was I was much better at staying on top of professional development related items prior to 2023. And particularly once we hit that point in August where my daughter dropped her nap, I dropped the ball on all layers of professional development. I shouldn't say all layers. I'm in a consult group. I consult in addition to just that group as needed, but I wasn't going above and beyond to edify my professional development skills after August. In fact, I was diving into a book called Better Results that I was super excited about earlier in 2023, and I meant to finish reading the book and make more videos about that book. I did not finish that book because, August 2023 was hard for me and I fell off the wagon on a lot of things. So that's definitely a flop of 2023. And as we go into 2024, something I'd like to structure differently about my life. Now, I know I referred to all of those as flops, but I don't see them as failures. They just feel like modifications that were necessary and appropriate given the unforeseen things that came along in 2023. So overall, when I look back at it, I feel like 2023 was overall a success. And I think once I'm older, looking back at how much work I did in the evenings while also pretty sleep deprived, I think I'm going to look back and say, well, on the one hand, wow, Marie, you did not need to do that, girl. But on the other hand, I think I'll feel proud of myself that hey, I made it work. That was my way of just trying to figure it out. And just the idea that I can still do what I love professionally, even if it's kind of a bare minimum sometimes, while also being there for my family emotionally and financially is very rewarding. Okay, all of that said, let's talk a little bit about my plans going into 2024. And before I name them, I'd like to just kind of declare, I guess, that as I make plans, I kind of I'm holding my hands out open in front of me. I hold them so loosely because flexibility is the name of the game. And that's the value that I really want to lean into. So let's put it this way. The number one plan I have for 2024 is to be flexible and make adjustments as things come, have space in my life personally and professionally in order to be able to be flexible as I need to be. And make plans, but hold them very loosely. Let them fall out of my hands anytime they need to. So that's my big plan for 2024. So my continued plan for 2024, as has been true across all now 5.5 years since starting Private Practice Skills, is to keep releasing YouTube content. And I'd like to keep honing in my skills for that, as well as now the podcast, and approach it as a craft. I want to just keep making better and better content, whether it's better on the production side of things, so that you can see and hear me well, and that my editing style is more approachable and engaging, and also the content itself, that maybe I have to do a little bit more research or whatever it might be to release good content. But that is number one plan. Because I love it. It feels valuable. I hope you like it. But even if not, I still love it. Another big one that I really, really want to emphasize in 2024 is emphasizing professional development. Now, I just mentioned in my flops that I totally fell off the wagon in reading a book that I was into and kind of did a lot of the bare minimum when it came to professional development in 2023. And I would like to really up the ante in 2024, make that a priority rather than a bare minimum. I am realizing it's been 12 years since I graduated from grad school, and stuff is updated. There's new stuff that's come up since then, and I want to learn those things. So for example, I signed up for a DBT training. Now, to all y'all who are certified in DBT, I'm not trying to be I respect how much work you've done. I'm not trying to become DBT certified, but I would like to be educated and informed about DBT, which back when I was in graduate school, I started in 2008, DBT was seen more as kind of an up-and-coming treatment, and now it seems to be a much more evidence-based treatment. And as I've been learning about DBT, I'm just getting excited by it. I feel like there's so many things in DBT that align with what I already do with my clients, but with so much more language and structure and tools around it. And then it builds on top of things that feel intuitive to me. So that's an example of something that I'm working on. I plan on reading a lot more books. Yes, I have missed getting excited about psychology books, and it's come back. I'm excited now. I have childcare to thank for that. For y'all podcast listeners out there, here are some of the books I'm excited about. Right now, I already started reading Building a Life Worth Living by Marsha Linehan. Is it Linehan or Linehan? I think it's Linehan. Excuse me for which I said it incorrectly. I started this one and I'm loving it. Oops, I bonked my microphone. Excuse me. Where basically Marsha Linehan shares her story, which is, riveting. So if that's something you're interested in, feel free. And you're going to see a theme here, but this isn't quite like a textbook or psychology book, but I'm wanting to read this book, The Dialectical Behavior Therapy Skills Workbook by Dr. McKay, Dr. Wood, and Dr. Brantley. Clearly, I'm on the DBT bandwagon right now. I'm not trying to become a DBT specialist. This is just how Marie tends to learn new stuff, is like I'll do a very temporary but majorly deep dive into a new topic, fully immerse myself in it, and then I come back out for air, implement that new thing for a while, and then I'll have another new thing that I'll dive into, and I just keep integrating each of those new pieces as I learn them. I've done that before with IFS. I've done that before with narrative therapy. I did it before with CBT. I did it before with ACT. So here we go. DBT, it's your turn. Another book that I'm very excited about is this one, Decolonizing Therapy by Dr. Jennifer Mullan. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. And this one I'm super excited about. Actually, I'm so excited that I'm waiting until I have even just a little bit more brain bandwidth to read it. I'll read a little bit from the inside flap. To better understand the mental health oppression and institutional violence that exists today, we must become familiar with the root of disembodiment from our histories, homelands, and healing practices. Decolonizing Therapy is a love letter and a call to action for helpers, healers, therapists, and the space holders struggling inside the mental health industrial complex. Colonization cuts us off from our histories, our bodies, one another, and the land. It separates us from home. It's time to return to the root. And then it has a couple of bullet points here. It says, Decolonizing Therapy invites you to remember and reckon with your individual and collective past, reclaim and restore ancient medicine, reconnect with what's lost and rebuild a new model of mental health, and repair harm and reimagine healing. There's more even in the inside flap, but the last sentence here says, Decolonizing Therapy shines a bright and loving light on the core wound of colonialism so that real healing can begin. This is my growth edge. I need to learn about this and I need help. And so not that a book is going to solve all of my life's problems, but better to read the book than not and see where we go from there. So I'm very excited to dive into that. And yes, I'm coming back. Better results. I'm coming back for you. I need to start over. I don't remember how far I got in this book. Actually, I got okay. I guess I got a little further than I remember. I'm I don't know, maybe a third of the way through or a fourth. But I need to start over on better results. If you're not familiar with when I spoke about this book before, it's all about using evidence-based ways to improve client outcomes, which doesn't tend to align with most of the stuff that I was taught as far as the evidence-based ways to improve client outcomes. A lot of what I was taught was around nailing that theoretical model, which is important and has value, but there's research to support that you could nail that theoretical model but still have terrible therapy outcomes, and you could be wishy-washy on your theoretical model and still have great outcomes. So what are the variables that actually account for great therapy outcomes. I want to learn, and I fell off that bandwagon, so I'm going to come back on it now. And the other type of reading that I really want to catch up on is like reading journals, just anything that kind of like sparks my brain into catching up on what's going on in therapy, in the world of psychology. Like even just small things, like when the APA sends me their latest bit of news or journal, like at least thumb through it digitally, and if there's things that stand out as new or novel, to read through it. And I always have had the intent of doing that, of course, and then it sits unread in my email inbox and then ends up in the bottom of my box, and then I wind up in the situation where my inbox is just full of unread messages that I will never get to, buried under a pile of more unread messages. So now I'm actually clicking on them and going through them as they come in, which feels really great. It's a value of mine to stay informed on things like this. And during this kind of new mom moving phase of life, it's been really difficult to lean into that value well. So that's something that's really important to me in 2024. And a huge goal of 2024, which I've alluded to already as I described my mom difficulties of 2023, is to use work hours for work and use evenings for whatever the heck I want to use evenings for, because I really got into the habit of using evenings to get my work done, answer client emails, edit a video, things like that. And I just don't want that to be the norm anymore. I have been trying it out so far in 2024, and it's been fabulous. And I've wound up using my evenings kind of 50-50 between just kind of relaxing, watching something, whatever, and professional development, whether it's diving into my DBT training that I'm working on or reading one of the Marsha Linehan book right now that I'm reading. Those are the things that I've ended up spending my evenings doing, which I get that professional development is a form of work, but it's exciting for me, and it's not something that I had carved out. It's not like a work task that has to get checked off a list. It's like, if I feel like it, I'll do it. And if I don't feel like it, I'll do it another time. So in that sense, it doesn't quite feel worky to me, even though I get that it is also work. And to throw in a personal item in my 2024 goals, I'm planning on taking more me time. The last several years, I have been getting me time, don't get me wrong, but I'm noticing more and more that I was tending to just squeeze it in whenever I could find it, sort of in real time. If I just happen to have like, ooh, I finished that thing a little faster than I thought, I have an extra hour, so I'm going to go do something for me. And I've found that very fulfilling, that I was able to access that for all these years of early motherhood. But I really haven't had like scheduled me time. Like actually on the schedule, like Marie's going to have some time for Marie. And that is so important. So even though broadly speaking, I have had that need of me time filled, it was more kind of if I got lucky and accidentally kind of stumbled on the me time than if I like had it prioritized as a clearly intentional value of mine. So that's something I am doing differently in 2024. One example of that is having scheduled time away from my kids, which listen, if it sounds like I don't like being a mom, I love being a mom, but like when I also love time for me. I have a lot of interests. My children are in the stratosphere of all the interests that I have, but I have other ones, and if I don't tend to those, then it's hard for me to also tend to the interest and value of being a mom. To paint the picture, there was a day in May of 2023 when I flew by myself without children to do a talk, and I was gone for a total of like 12 hours, and that felt like a huge deal to leave that long, leave my partner in charge of my kids for that long, even though they're just as much his kids as they are mine. That was just a new routine for us that we hadn't done before. And that was a really big deal. And then I also had one night away in August, which I took you along for if you watched that video. And that's the only time I've ever spent the night away from my kids. So one of the things I'm going to be intentional about in 2024 is having at least some nights overnight where I'm not with my kids. I already booked one coming up in a couple of months. I'm going to go back to Northern California, see some of my old friends. I booked a nice hotel. I had all these points saved up because I haven't been able to travel with kids since I have kids. And when we travel with kids, we don't book the nice hotel because there's kids. Anyway, I booked a nice hotel with points, and I'm going to sleep in, which I realize for me probably means getting up at 7, but it's going to be glorious that I will not have anybody yelling at me as my alarm clock. Nature's alarm clock of children that has woken me up continuously for now 4.5 years. So I'm looking forward to that. And it's not just overnight travel, just scheduling time in my weekly schedule that's like, this is Marie time, which I've been doing and I appreciate so much. And I'd like to share something that I'm not planning for 2024. Now, this is something that's specific to me, my individual personality and things like that. So this is not prescriptive in any way whatsoever, but something that I'm planning on not doing for 2024 is setting overly detailed goals. Something that I named earlier that I've come to know is true about me is I'm very driven. I have a very high work ethic. And so whether I set goals or not, I'm going to be getting a lot of work done. It's a Mariaism. I'm not the person who goes, I don't know what my goal is, so I'm going to sit on the couch. I don't know what my goal is, and so I'm going to just go do something. Doing stuff is very intrinsically rewarding for me, whatever the stuff is. And generally, if I go and do stuff, it's going to be stuff that aligns with my values somewhere. And so even if I don't set any goals, if I look back at how I spend my time after the fact, I tend to feel pretty good about how I spent my time because I'll wind up spending my time doing things that are in alignment with my values. So given that that's the context of like my personality and all of that, if I set too many goals that are too detailed across the year, then what can end up happening is those goals end up taking too much space in my brain. And rather than letting the free flow of kind of just exploring and seeing where my work ethic and my values take me, I end up feeling like, oh, but I should be focusing though on those other goals that I said I would do. And I have this new narrative in my mind about how, well, I really kind of want to go over here and do this thing, but I set that goal over there and I'm not doing it, so I'm falling short in some way. And that narrative can take up a lot of space in my brain. So if I don't have too many goals and I don't have too many details around those goals, then I can just feel free to go ahead and do whatever I want, which in the long run tends to be something that I feel good about after the fact, and that aligns with things that I'd say are overall goals for me, if that makes sense. If I keep pauses in my schedule and moments of opportunity, then I take them as they come rather than feeling like I need to stick by that goal that I set, so I need to turn down this opportunity that just popped up. Well, that about sums up my plans for 2024, which I don't know, maybe it sounds like a lot, maybe it doesn't sound like a whole lot. Who knows? But hopefully you enjoyed coming along for the ride with me. Well, thanks for joining me in my reflections about 2023 and my plans for 2024. Are you a big planner? Do you make big goals for the year? I really don't. This is about all. This is all the time I spent thinking about 2024, and then I'll probably be done until 2025. But I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, from one therapist to another, I wish you well.